Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you so very much for joining us. Well, today I'm happy to report that we're somewhat back to our regular programming. As you know, for the last month or two, we've been focusing on all things local government elections. We had a full breakdown and an analysis from Malcolm Ferreira last week, who was here, and I know we got inbox messages from most of you, and you did, get a gist of it and an understanding of where we are and where we need to be and all of that. So we're finished with our discussions on local government elections and elections for now. I did promise you that from now until the 17th, the week of the 17th of December, we'll have some interesting conversations for you. Of course, as you know, that week is the week when we take a break from Facing the Nation until in the middle of January. But again, today's conversation is going to be an interesting one. Now, just to put the conversation in context, Sunday, the 25th of November 2018 would be International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. I know some people like to say, oh, we're talking about this again. I even say it, and I always say on social media, we come here every time a woman is killed, every time a woman is beating, and we scream to the top of our lungs, and it's like temporary outrage, and then after that we relax and we go back. But the fact is, we have to keep talking about it because it is taking our human resources, our female human resources. And as I was just discussing with the guest who's here, it is also affecting our children. But enough from me on that. I'll let the experts speak to you today. Now, this young lady is no stranger to Guyana. Some of you who know me personally know I've been trying to get her on this program for a few months now. But I've finally been able to track her down, and her times and everything meshed with ours. So it is my pleasure to welcome for the first time to Facing the Nation. Of course, hopefully it wouldn't be the last. Of course, she knows I'll keep trying to bother her even if it's on social media. I'd like to welcome her for the first time to our program. She is a member on the Women and Gender Equality Commission and also on Rights of the Child Commission. So you'll get a lot of information from her today. Miss Nichole Cole, again, no stranger to Guyana, no stranger to social media. Her voice is very big out there, and these are the people we need to fight and champion certain causes. So Miss Cole, welcome to Facing the Nation, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm extremely happy to be here to look once more at this, I would call it a public health as well as a social problem, and it is not one which we cannot get tired talking about. I mean, just recently, as recent as the 15th, last week, Thursday, the Catholic Church, in conjunction with the First Lady of Guyana, but unfortunately, she could not have been there because of the unforeseen circumstance surrounding the president's illness. There was a conversation held at the Arthur Chung Convention Center entitled Respect Due. And it is looking at addressing issues pertaining to violence against women. Well, I was a bit aghast because in 2013, if your memory goes all the way back then, we had a national conversation on domestic violence, right? And I hold in my hand here, these are the 55 recommendations that came out of that public discourse. You've had, what was instrumental about that is that you had both the then government and the opposition, which is now the government, participating. So we've spoken about it. We came up with the recommendations. They're here, all 55. And then what came out of this was actually a national committee for the prevention of interpersonal violence. So we had this conversation. We didn't call it respect due domestic, looking at
it's basically
violence
the same
against
thing.
women. Thank you very much.
And
we call it interpersonal violence.
And this is why I keep saying we've been screaming to the top of our lungs for so long, and it's still happening. There are some people who are suggesting, all right, look, we need to move away from this phase of, I'm not necessarily in agreement with that, but people are suggesting we need to move away temporarily from the phase of having the national conversation and having the policymakers, whether it be government, whether it be opposition, whether it be people like you and commission like yours, we need to move away from that and try to find a way for people, especially women, to look upon themselves and investigate why is it that this is happening. Why is it that you continue, even though unfortunately every month, every 2 weeks, you open the papers, you see some other woman either beaten or killed. People want to believe, and I'm inclined to agree with them to a certain extent, that maybe it is time for households and women of themselves to decide, why are you allowing this? We can't expect Nichole Cole and the various commissions and the government and the opposition to decide for you, to fix you. What do you say to that sort of take on it?
I will say to you that in matters of passion and love, the issue is not as straightforward as some may seem to actually look at it from the outside. When you would have be in love with a man, you're in love with him, you've shared personal, well, actually, you become glued. Whether you do it through the legal means or you do it common law, is that you're in love. And when you are in love, you know, there's a saying that says love is blind. If there are infractions that happens in the relationship, especially for most women, they try to actually stay or believe that they can fix this. You know, I can fix this. I'm going to try and I can remedy this. They may not view it coming from an end of a patriarchal system that is extremely harsh and punitive and will act with impunity against any quote-unquote wrongdoings that a woman may commit that disrespects or is seen to emasculate that man in his manhood. And here I will go right back to the law. When I studied criminology in my social work years as a student, I was absolutely stunned to read in the law. Have you ever heard about the rule of thumb?
Yes.
Do you understand what it means?
I think so, but I'm sure the viewers are in for a teaching.
What the rule of thumb means that in English law, it was permissible for the man to beat his wife.
Wow.
He must punish her. It's just that the instrument which he uses to punish her must be no thicker than the thumb.
Really?
Yes, really. So it was permissible in law to actually punish a woman in those, oh, she dissed you, oh, this is what we're going to do to her. So what we're actually witnessing is the punishment by men towards the women that they profess to love for infractions. Now look at a woman who lost her life for not properly cooked meals. You remember that story?
Yes, I remember
Just
that
recently,
ridiculous story.
I was like,
yes.
oh my God. The food wasn't properly prepared. Well, couldn't we just go and have dinner somewhere else? Or couldn't you just help me cook the food over if you like
Miss
it?
Cole, don't you
But
believe,
she lost her
though?
life because...
But that's what I'm coming to
The
know.
food,
In
right.
a case like that, because I know you've done psychology and all of that, and you have the experience. In a case like that, don't you believe that it ran, again, viewers, and those of you who know me personally, I am not, Miss Cole knows I'm passionate about this. I'm not excusing this behavior in any way, shape, or form. But don't you believe in a case like that, it goes a little, something else was wrong, it goes a little deeper than just the food not cooked properly?
Yes, I will tell you what else was absolutely wrong with that.
Okay.
We have studies that have shown that persons who imbibe or use alcohol use has been one of the triggers or the drivers of the behavior. We've even had a magistrate who admitted that he's in trepidation when there are shows, and he know that there will be alcohol consumption because the very next day in his courtroom, he will see all these cases when persons imbibe. Because in that story you'll hear, if you read it, you'll see that he came home drunk. And we have so many incidences of coming home drunk. And this is why recently at the Respect Due conversation, I asked the representative of DDL whether or not it was their corporate social responsibility to ensure that a fund or money is there to actually help women who are desirous of escaping, because escaping is not something that can happen like this. Escaping will take money, my dear sister. And as a survivor myself, I can tell you that it took monies upon money, safe home. I thank God for my aunt, the retired dean for State University, New York, Dr. Bernadette Cole Slaughter, who opened up her house. And she didn't house me for 8 months, 1 year or 2 years, 8 years. That intervention was 8 years. It gave me an opportunity to walk right back to university, to put my life back together, to get skills so that I will not be dependent upon a man and his money for the sustenance. Because one of the reasons why we see many of the women trapped in relationships of abuse is their economic dependency. And when we look at economics and women's poverty, women are poorer than men. Look, we are struggling for equality. I fully understand that. But when we look at the reality, the men control the resources. They still control property. For women, for you to have property, you either buy your own property. I'm happy that my mom has done that. All right, my mom owns her own property. You can buy your own property, or you have to wait for your husband to die and it's willed to you. That is just a reality. Property never really goes to women, it goes to the boys. When you look at businesses around right here on Regent Street, you'll see this Body and Sons. I just went into a store, Harry Narain and Sons. This Body and Sons. You seldom see and daughter. So women are inherently in unequal power relations economically.
How do we do away with that culture?
We do away with that culture by first valuing the girl child. She should have equal rights to property. I would say to my male family members who have their daughters, I said, hope that with whatever you're doing, that you ensure that she, the girl, even if it's one girl you have, she is part of the business and she's handling money and no money and you're leaving things for her. But why do we always will the property to the boys? So we give men power. So inherently, violence against women stems from an unequal power relations, whereby men are in total control of that which is powerful and money is powerful. How do I get to move out of a relationship that a man is threatening my life if I don't have a house? The first thing is a home. I actually challenged the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Roman Catholic Church to do that for women. On the 25th of August 2018, I did a talk at the Olivet Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm happy that the churches are on board and are doing something.
Because sometimes I feel the churches and religious
talking.
Bodies in general are quiet.
I'm happy that they're talking because remember, the church gives prescription rights as to what is acceptable or not acceptable for women. When they say to you, you must submit yourselves unto your husband, forsaking all others. And they preach that all the time. They do not equal the preaching by saying, well, the husband must love his wife as he loves his own body. That is not preached predominantly. They will preach the part of women being the submissive ones, women adhering, women. So once a woman steps out of line, she's going to be harshly punished. And the punishment in most cases is murder. Let's look at the murder.
Even before you go there,
Sure.
I know I definitely want you to do that. Viewers, if you're now joining us, just to remind you, again, those of you now joining us, you don't know, we are talking because coming Sunday is International Day for the Elimination of Violence against Women. We're talking all things women and women being abused and so on in our society. And of course, my guest today is Miss Nichole Cole, who sits on the Women and Gender Equality Commission and also on the Rights of the Child Commission. Oh boy, I almost missed it. Okay, coming back to something you said earlier, which is you talked about the fact that some of the women don't leave because of the economic situation. You need money to do this. That is where I'm coming now, because you and I both know there are women who are very influential, have their own money, maybe double times, their husbands or partners or whatever. And it's interesting, they go to work, sometimes they come to work and the makeup is covering the bruises and they're in mental turmoil. And these women still stay. And this is where I'm coming to now. How can I love... people, viewers who might be watching, women who have experienced it, may want to describe my feelings as a tad bit naive. But I don't understand how you can continue loving a person who hits you, who hurts you physically. It's pain.
Well, I want to just bring you to a very popular song. I like to, in my lectures when I do with my students, they laugh and they said, Miss You, I try to sing. So listen to, is it Morgan Heritage that says to you, she's still loving me.
Yes.
Although I cause her so much pain. I've done my share of wrongs time and time. He is confident to sing. Listen to that song.
Yeah.
And don't your pores raise. She's still loving me even though I made her cry. So this is the type of love that women give to men. So she look, and then he's singing, she's my one and only. All right? I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going to leave my baby. So that, for him, he's proud. All the pain and all that, he's singing what he has done to her. He's telling you it in a song. And this has happened over and over. So when women love, I would say they love to the point, most of them to their detriment. Okay? Because there are some women who see the signs. The signs are there. Some people may tell them over and over again. But love is that powerful thing that even though you're seeing it, and then they will go back. Let me tell you what some women do. You give them an advice, and they put you in the sauce. The man see you, and he views you out.
Nikki said.
You know who said what? And then the man will say to them, you know what? You see she ain't got a man? Why you feel she ain't got a man? And so she want to take, she want me, you break up. And not that, it's that you love your friend enough to say to her, listen, abuse is not love. Until women get to the point whereby they love themselves unconditionally and is not prepared to accept, it starts with the verbal. Abuse starts by what he says to you. So pay attention to the language. Okay? This is why we must listen to songs that doesn't denigrate us. You see, right away I can tell you about the song where he's singing what he has done to her, and she's still loving him, and he's proud to sing.
Even
about
as
that.
a woman, I've never recognized that, and I can tell you, trust and believe, from now on I'm going to listen to that song with different ears
because he's saying to her that he's confident. So men are confident that women will love them, even though they do wrong. Do we have that same confidence as women? Absolutely not. I'll ask you to name me at least 3 men for the year 2018 that have lost their lives. That have lost it. Because whenever we talk about violence against women, people say, but violence happens against men. Strike it out. We are dealing with an impunity that has been happening to women as recent as yesterday. The man who got charged for the murder that occurred in Eyelash Back Dam, Northwest District, where he buried her in a shallow grave and net in a plastic bag. So we're talking about men's impunity with the use of violence against women. Name me 3 men. Just name me 3 men who have been murdered this year by their spouses, by the women that love them, because of some kind of infraction. I'm talking about domestic violence. I want you to name, because we are saying it happens to men.
Yeah,
and if it's happening to men, you need to show me the statistics, right? I have on my phone, this murder hasn't gone away from me. I'll show it to you. This was the murder that happened in East La Penitence when the knife was left plunged in her neck. And my friends say, why do you still have that thing?
I was about to ask you.
You know why I have it? If you psychoanalyze it and you watch it you can tell the shock of everything. Her eyes is open. This is somebody who's already dead. Have you recognized this? But the shock of what he did to her. It's like, I asked the question after this murder, how does a man who professed to love you wake up one morning and decide to plunge a knife into your neck, to hammer you to your head, to stab you, to burn you with fire, to burn you with acid, to kill you and bury you? How does that happen? How do a man move from the point of love to this total destruction whereby he kills the woman he loves. And let me tell you what is more disheartening for us as a nation: the murder suicides. In no other year have we had so much murder suicides as we've had in 2018. So it appears as though the men are saying, look, total destruction is the only solution. Bob Marley have a song that tells you that. Mm-hmm. Total destruction is the only solution. And they're using that. And you know who's suffering?
The our children. And I'm happy that you mentioned them. Mm-hmm.
The Glasgow murder. I'm going to Berbice. Berbice have had some horrible murder suicides for this year. Glasgow, this is whereby an 8-year-old girl, 8 and 6-year-old girls and 3-year-old twins are now orphaned. When he professed to come into the house with this thing he's going to make up, and they let him in the house. The mother, she's home by her mother. They had a disagreement. They're living apart. Mm-hmm. He was living by the neighbor, whatever was happening. But he came over and say, man, he's coming to make up. And there's something in us women whereby we tend to show a little mercy when a man is coming begging.
Not if you hit me.
Look, some women some women are going to give him this extra chance because they still have an attachment to him and hoping that, look, now this time around when he begs and he says he's sorry, so you hope, it's like the poem, I Got Flowers Today. Have you read that poem?
Over and over again.
So he continues to do it, but he brings gifts, mm-hmm. right, to say that he's sorry. I got that treatment. So every time he does that and he says he's sorry, you think, well, that, look, he's really working on it and things are going to be different. So when she opened the door, the mother opened the door, they did not know he had a knife concealed under his shirt or in his pants, wherever, until he whipped it out and started to plunge it into her. And the mother tried to save her. Remember, the mother was injured? Mm-hmm. The mother tried to save her by running. But then the knife attack. She now jumped over the veranda. And the mother now, the only thing the mother could tell her, run for your life. But by the time then he scaled the veranda too, ran her down and slit her throat.
You think it's the rage of it all? I mean, this is alcohol aside, because, and again, it's not excusing it. Obviously, if someone is under the influence of alcohol or some other drugs, you mentally become a different person and you get a sort of a strength.
Alcohol has shown to produce aggression. Do the studies. Alcohol has shown to produce aggression.
What about the people who actually do it without any substance at all in their system? What is that? Some sort of anger?
That is rage. The same word you used just now. That is actually rage, and coming from the point again of patriarchy. You don't diss the man. The man is the head of the house. You don't diss the man. No disrespect in no aspect. Mm-hmm. Right? So you got to thump her up. You got to show her, give her the hand, let you know who's man, who wear the pants. All right? Remember, even within male spaces, they really fight each other, Right? Yeah, males together fight. They will have it. Oh yes, I've run between brothers. And the one who's able to beat up on the one, the other one
as the king.
Learns to have this respect. I remember violence is also used as a language by nations. We spend a lot of money on violence. If we look at why America is a superpower, it's because of their ability to use violence against you. If you this way, we're going to do you like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We're talking about when they dropped the atomic bombs. So, and then we award those men who use violence. Remember, soldiers are awarded. Why do you think they have all these pips and all these stars? It's because of their ability to kill you. So when you had the aide de camp to our own very chief of staff take his gun on the 31st of March and emptied 14 rounds into Rihanna Payne. That level of violence. Look, she was dead. I think was he after the because the one that went to her brain. 14. That is rage.
Let me bring something else, another aspect into this conversation now. Alcohol aside, rage aside, people who are religious and people who are spiritual. I myself sometimes find myself saying it. You would hear me sing, and I've heard other people with this. Look, in our society, the devil is on the loose. It's after our men, after our boys. There are some people who may also say that in cases like this, some sort of whatever, something bigger than all of us, obviously not bigger than God, because I'm a firm believer in God, in Christ, but something bigger than us probably takes these people. How do you respond to such sentiments as Nichole Cole?
I want to say that we must never forget that the society which we live in today and that we've inherited was actually born out of violence. Horrible violence. Remember, there was a time in Guyana whereby violence against women was not a crime. And I'm going right back here to the transatlantic slave trade, where women of African descent were raped, tortured, brutalized, and everything ill done to them. It happened to the men, but the women bear the brunt of it because we had to bring forth the babies for those very men who raped us. So there was this society is a society born out of violence. Horrible violence. We tend to celebrate it once a year on Emancipation Day. We don't even look at some of the scourge that are there. That's why coffee stands as a rebellion. We will say coffee ugly, right? Well, slavery was ugly. So we need a monument to represent that ugliness of it. And in this day and age, we are still fighting for reparations, for some amount of repair, if it can happen. But if you listen to people like Dr. Franz Cresswell Singh, who tells you that we as an African people are actually suffering from post-traumatic slavery disorder, which goes deep, which hurts us because, remember, you cannot strip people naked. I like the statues in Jamaica, if you've been there, to Emancipation Park, you see the naked man and woman, which tells you how we have become. So we are dealing with a society in its very creation was barbaric. Never forget that. Some of the most cruel, inhumane things happen in this society. And is it right that it's happening now? No. We must always want to resist against the evilness in a society that wants to actually subjugate another. And what is happening to women is the subjugation, is the impunity by men. Again, you could not name me 3 men who have been murdered this year by their spouses, but I can name you most of the women who have been murdered.
You don't even have all of them there. You
The
said
children,
it's been 21 thus far?
21 yesterday. The man who was charged, Patricia David, the shallow grave murder. When we look at what is happening to children caught in it, can you remember there was a child who went to see her aunt? When the man get up and started to stab the aunt and she screamed, he in turn turned on the child and choked the child so hard, choked her and punched her to her face. Her eyes started to bleed. The mother got slashed across her face too. But that child, she was 4 years old, she's our youngest survivor of domestic violence because she experienced violence as a child.
I'm happy that you touched on survivor.
Yes, she is the youngest survivor. I'm a survivor, but that child is the youngest survivor because she survived that violence. But her screams is what actually alerted the mother to get up, and that's how they saved her life because if you see the stabs, her neck had a cut. She got a lot of slashes. Right? He has since been charged with attempted murder.
One of the things you talked about are all of these conversations that we've had. For crying out loud, we've been talking about it for decades, for more than a decade now. How has society, well, I should say have, because I'm talking society, the current government, the past government, the current administration, Nichole Cole, Women and Gender Equality Commission, Rights of the Child Commission, Malika Ramsey, how have we all failed these women who have died and even the women who continue to live it and experience it daily? And this is barring what I said earlier about people thinking it is time for some of these women themselves to take stock of themselves, their homes, their lives, their family, and see how they can fix the situation. Against all of that, putting all of that aside, how have we all failed these women and their children that are left behind?
I think what we have failed to do is to ensure that resources are made available. And here, I am speaking directly